Alright, in this video we're going to continue off exactly where we left off in the previous one. So we have our information that we need, so we're going to have to create another data type that kind of holds more information as well on top of that. So it's basically going to be an array of a struct that contains another struct in it. So that main struct, we know we want to have it hold the instance component, and then on the inside of the struct, we want to make sure we have the index of the struct that we're trying to access and the socket names that, well, it has. And that one might also be a third struct. So it might be the socket name and a boolean to tell us whether or not the socket is in use. So it's going to get pretty nested. So anyways, let's just flat out begin. So first thing we have to do, obviously, is create more structs. So this one's going to be our f building socket check. I guess that would be a way to put it. And then we want to have this here. So I'm going to actually go ahead and forward declare this somewhere outside these two, somewhere like, I'll just do it here. So we don't need to keep forward declaring it. All right, so once we have that, we then need an array of another struct. So let's make that. This one's going to be f build socket, or f build index sockets. And this one's going to contain the index. So int 32 index. And then we just need one more. And yes, I know. Annoying. This can probably be done better, but yeah, I'm just going to leave it. It could probably be done better. Okay, so this one's going to be the f socket in use. Or better yet, just socket information, I guess. Or if we really wanted to, we could also iterate through everything and just store a giant array of transforms in the sockets, but I really don't want to do that. So inside of here, we want to have two variables. One's going to be the f. We'll just store it as an f string, so we don't have to keep converting it back and forth. Or should we do name? Yeah, let's do string. And we'll see when we get there. So f name, socket name. Then we want to have a boolean, bool, be socket enabled, or socket in use. And that, by default, is just going to be false. Okay, so f build socket check. All right, let's actually start from the bottom and work our way up. So we know that the index is going to have a bunch of sockets. So we're just going to have a T array of f socket information. Let's call this one sockets, or sockets information, because grammar is great. Now we want to have an array of f build index sockets, because each component is going to have multiple indexes. So again, T array of f build index sockets, and let's call this one instance socket info, or information. That looks right. Okay, so we have hopefully the information that we really need. So now we kind of gotta go from here. Okay, so basically every time we add an instance, we want to add onto this information and kind of figure it out. So let's create this struct on our header file for building.h. So f build socket check. This actually has to be a T array again. F build socket check. Let's do. Let's rename it to instance socket check. So f instance socket check. I think that's a much more in tune name there. Okay, once we have that, let's go to our begin play. And we want to basically add, well, a struct to it. So we had to create the type. So f instance socket check, instance socket I guess it's an okay name, and add it. So the only thing we want to do is instance socket. We want to set the instance component for the first one to equal foundation instance mesh. Do it again and again. We want to do this for each one. So foundation, wall, ceiling. So then we have our wall instance mesh and our ceiling instance mesh. So that way we can, when we go to loop through this, we can figure out, okay, our hit component equals this one or this one or this one. And we can go step into that struct from there and do whatever we need to with the information. So by default, actually, no, they're not going to have any. The only one that's going to have is going to be, yeah. Anyways, I'm just kind of thinking a little bit differently. So on begin play, we are calling add instance, add f transform. So add instance is, okay, so we're going to want to call add instance by default to pretty much pass in all this, all this information. So let's go ahead and set that up. So we're replacing this line here. So we're going to call add instance, and we need to construct f building socket data. So f building socket data, building socket data. So building socket data dot, we want to set the index to equal 0. We want to set the instance component to equal the foundation instance mesh. We want to set the socket name. We're not going to have a socket name, so we can just do name underscore none. Then we want to have, oops, equals name underscore none. And then we have the transform, which is going to be an f transform. Then we can pass building socket data in. Then we want to do the e build type for the foundation. And that should create that by default. Okay. Now let's go ahead and close down the editor and make sure that that is not broken. Alrighty, so I had to go for a bit. I don't remember exactly where I left off. I just remember I'm supposed to test this. Okay, so I'm pressing F and nothing is happening. Let's see if we even have those actors in the world outliner, which we do. They are all being placed, however, it looks like at the world origin. So let me place one just to see. So foundation's there. Wait a minute. So let's see. That just confused myself a little bit. So why is that? I gotcha. Okay, so I'm missing a step here. At least I think. So let's see. Before we would just call. Yep. So we would get the actor transform of where we wanted to spawn it, and I got it. So we're basically screwing this up a bit. So let's go to begin play. Actually, because we wouldn't have an offset. When we go to add instance, though, we are adding the instance in world space. So that there's our problem. So we're basically spawning this at the center of the world. So what we want to do is we want to get actor transform and see if that resolves it. Not sure what all this stuff is. Okay, let's hit play. And there we go. Okay, so we can snap still. That all works. Okay, so everything's still working as it should. Not what I meant to hit. Alright, so we can continue on. So let's see. I'm going to pause and I need to think real quick. I need to get back to the mindset that I was at. Okay, so we're passing in to add instance, building socket data. So we have the component that we need, we have the index and the socket name. So we need to construct, wait, we already have, so we need to iterate through all these and find the one where the instance component matches, again, the instance component. And from there, we can start working on well, these. So the instance socket information. So building.cpp. And now that it has me thinking, because of the order and because we're going to be, passing or calling add instance from this anyways, we need to perform these before it. So let's copy all this where we add it to our instance socket check. And at the top of begin play, that is where we go through and we add them. Okay, so we just want to make sure we have those added to the array first. So for the time being, we're going to do, I think we can do everything inside of here. So what we need to do is we need to construct all the information. So we have building socket data, so building socket data, and that gives us what we need. So let's do a for each loop over the, what do we call that array? The instance socket check. We want to do, wait a minute, I'm getting myself confused here. We want to iterate through f instance socket check. Okay, so we want to iterate through that instanced socket check, and I called it the same thing, didn't I? Instance socket check. Yes, I did. So we want to rename this first one real quick. So instance socket. We'll name this to instance sockets check instead, because we're going to have an array of them. So that'll make a little bit more sense as we work our way through. Ooh, not sure why you scrolled all the way up. So we just went ahead and renamed that variable. And from here, we can do our check. So if instance socket dot instance component equals building socket data dot instance component, we have a match. So I'm going to start out, we're going to be printing out some logs here. So warning, text, found matching component, %s. We're going to dereference and just pass it, or just use instance socket dot instance socket component dot get name, and see where that takes us. So since we renamed something in the header, we want to go ahead and recompile and relaunch real quick. All right, now we can drag out our output log a little bit so we can see, and press F. So found matching component, foundation, instance, blah, blah, blah. So that one was foundation again because we're building on the foundation. So now let's add the ceiling, and this should be the wall, just like so. Now we can do the wall again, and it should be the ceiling. Perfect. Okay, so this is good. Now we need to think of what we need to do extending it. So I'm going to copy this just so I have a, actually, is there a way I can, nah, because I want to have it all on screen at the same time. I was going to bring the building data types over so I can keep seeing the information here. I just need to remember those three things. I don't know why I keep forgetting. But okay, so we have our information. Now we want to do some more, we want to set it. So for the instance socket, we already had that set. We need the instance socket information. So that is f build index sockets. So we need to create that. So f build index sockets, build index sockets. So we need to set that up. So build index sockets dot index is going to equal the build data, or building data socket data, or building socket data, sorry, dot index. And then we have to do the socket information. So that is going to be an array of, well, socket information. So here's where I'm a little bit, I'm trying to think. So we can get all of the sockets that the foundation has. That won't be a problem. And we can just set it in there. I think that's what we're going to end up having to do. And then we are going to have to iterate over that to find the matching socket from here and assign it to that array. So I think that's what we're going to do. So we need to create a f socket information. So f socket information. socket information. And we're basically going to be setting this all up. So first things first, we need to iterate over all of the sockets that the mesh contains. So for, it's going to be a const f name by reference, socket name, in instance socket dot instance component, and then it's going to be what is it, get all socket names. So that'll kind of take care of that for us. So what we want to do is socket information dot socket name equals socket name, and here we want to do a check. Okay, so we got to convert socket name to a string. And now we want to do the same thing. So socket information, however, actually we want to do a check first. So if, we need to figure out if it's in use. So if socket name, is there an equal? Yes, there is actually. So is equal to building socket data dot socket name. So if that is the case, did I add one extra? Yes, I did. We want to set socket information dot be socket in use to equal true, because by default, remember, this should be false. Yes, it is. Okay, it's saying I'm low on memory. Let me double check real quick. All right, well, it's not using much. It's using 5.5 gigs. I don't know why I was complaining. I mean, I guess it is using a good bit technically, unless it had a big spike. But I have noticed it feels like it has gotten a little bit slower. Anyways, I might restart it here in a little bit. Anyways, let's continue. So we are setting that information up. That's just fine. Then what we want to do is we want to do build index sockets dot sockets information dot add. We want to add socket information. So that will construct all that for a specific index for us, I hope. Then at the end here, we have the instance socket information. We can just set that equal to build index sockets. All right, what did I mess up on? All right, it's a T array. So dot add build index sockets. Okay, so that should construct pretty much everything that we need inside of, well, that array. So every time we add something, we should have it basically filled out. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and switch this over, and I'm going to close down and restart my stuff, as well as this video is getting a little bit long, so I'm going to stop it here. I figured that might be a good time. And in the next video, we're going to go through launch with the debugger and make sure that this holds all the information that we need. So that's what we're going to be testing. So anyways, that's going to be it for this video. If you like what I'm doing and you want to help support me, you can find a link to my Patreon down in the description below, where I have a Team Deathmatch series just for Patrons, as well as you get early access to nearly all of my videos. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to join my Discord that's also linked down below, and I'll try to help you out. So I'll see you in the next video.